Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and I'm here tonight with the second part of my Meze 99 Classics review. The first time I showed you all the features of the headphone and touched a little bit on the sound, but tonight this is going to be basically about the sound. If you want a good look at the headphone and all the details, you can go back and look at my first video, my first impressions. But anyway, I'll show you once again, give you a quick view of the headphones. It's a closed back. The cups are made of real walnut. It has a self-adjusting headband. They're lightweight. They're comfortable. Swiveling ear cups, that helps with the comfort too. Anyway, something I wanted to show you that I kind of started talking about this in my first video and basically segued off into another subject and never got back to it. But I did mention that there is no real front or back to these headphones. The only way you can tell the difference is it does have the name up on the headband, but like I said, there's no real front or back, so you can use them either way, but because it is a detachable cable, you do have a left and right side to it. And I did want to point out that on the cable, on the left side, there's a little ridge on it. You can see it here in the video. And anyway, when you plug these in, even in the dark, you can tell which side's the left just by running your finger over it. You can feel that little ridge. It doesn't have it on the right side. So plug these in whichever way you want, turn whichever way forward you want on the headphones, and then you can always know which side is the left side by that little ridge. So anyway, I forgot to point that out in my first video. These headphones I've had for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks now. I've had a chance to listen to them quite a bit, and basically, first of all, they are extremely efficient. We're talking IEM territory, and you can run them on just about any amp, so you do not need to spend a lot of money on an amp with these headphones. In fact, any portable unit, even a phone, is going to have plenty of power for these headphones. So these headphones, they do sell for $309. It's not the cheapest headphone, but like I said, you're not going to have to spend any money on an amp with these. Basically, my just to simplify it, my description of these headphones would be a warm, bassy, but not dark. They do have a little bit of sparkle in the treble. The treble's never fatiguing or harsh or anything like that. It's kind of a laid-back sound, but yeah, just basically on the warm side of neutral and quite bassy, but it's not a dark headphone where you're gonna that just leaves out the treble. The treble is present. I think the best thing I can do is throw in a couple comparisons here to give you some ideas. I don't have another headphone that's that similar to these right now. This is a closed back. I don't have any other closed back headphones right now other than an old Sony DJ headphone I have. So what I've got closest would be the Sundara, Hi-Fi-Man Sundara, which is currently selling for $350, so it's pretty close in the price range. And then I've also, on the other side, on the lower end, I've got the Grotto SR80E. And I wanted to kind of compare this to that, just to give you an idea where the tone balance is at, because the Grotto SR80E, I really like it. It's a nice headphone, and it has exceptional detail for its price of $99. But it can sound a little thin. It doesn't have a lot of, doesn't have much bass extension, doesn't have a lot of impact to the bass. And also the treble is a little on the bright side and can get a little fatiguing at times. So basically, the Meze 99 Classic is in my opinion, is pretty much the opposite of the grotto. Where the grotto's thin in the bass, the Meze is more than sufficient, and where the grotto is a little bright and fatiguing in the treble, the Meze is not that way at all. It has just enough treble to, you know, sound good. I like the treble. So anyway, I wanted to show you this. This will give you kind of an idea where we're at with the tone. I've got a Shit Loki equalizer, and as most of you probably know, it's a 4-band equalizer with tone adjustments at 20 Hertz, 400 Hertz, 2000, and 8000. So you've got 4 knobs of adjustment. And in an experiment, what I basically did is I took the 2 headphones and wanted to try to make them sound basically the same as far as tone balance, and then recorded what adjustments I had to use on the Loki to come up with basically approximately the same tone balance. So I made this little diagram here that'll help me explain what I did. The 4 knobs, or the 4 circles, would represent the 4 knobs on the Loki. You have your 20 Hertz, your 400 Hertz, your 2000, and your 8000. And then the top 4 circles would be represent the grotto, and the bottom would represent the Meze. So basically, to get approximately the same tone balance, on the grotto, I had to boost the bass about 3 or 4 decibels. It would be at the 3 o'clock position, and the Meze, I had to go backwards with it and cut the bass back to about 9 o'clock. At 400 Hertz, I left them both at neutral. At 2000 Hertz, I had to give the Meze a boost of a few decibels up to about probably about 2 o'clock. And then at 8000, I actually had to cut the grotto back to about 10 o'clock and boost the Meze to about 3 o'clock to get these two in the same approximate tone balance. So basically, I had to boost the bass on the grotto and cut the bass on the Meze, and cut the treble on the grotto and boost the treble on the Meze to get them about the same. So that gives you an idea of how much different they actually are. So if you're one of those people that thinks that the grotto sounds thin and bright, the Meze 99 might be the perfect headphone for you. I was also just going to make a brief comparison to the Sundara. I realize it's quite a bit different. It's an open back. It does cost a little more. Basically, the Sundara, with no doubt, has more detail and resolution, especially up in the upper mid-range and treble. But comparing the two, the Sundara is definitely going to sound thin and lacking bass extension and bass impact compared to the Meze. So you might want to take that into consideration. If you've heard the Sundara and just don't think it has enough bass, once again, this might be the headphone for you. I basically, over the last few weeks listening to this headphone, have come to the conclusion that this headphone excels at rock, pop, and electronic music. Those are the types of music that this headphone does well with. I did want to tell you about, I'm kind of drifting off subject a little bit here, but when I'm wearing these, it kind of gave me some flashbacks from a long time ago. And what it reminded me of, because of the bass in these headphones, it gave me that feeling of being at an indoor concert. I mean, we're talking 80s and 90s now, but I used to go to a lot of concerts. I lived up by Chicago at the time. And one of my favorite places to see concert was the Aragon, which was formerly the Aragon Ballroom. Anyway, it was a large indoor concert hall. I can't remember if it held 3,000 or 5,000 people. Had a high ceiling, probably 30, 40 feet high, but it just had a unique sound. And I remember when I would go to the, not up by the stage, but kind of the opposite end of the hall, you would just get this, the band sounded kind of distant, but, you just had that thumping bass that, was reflecting off the walls of the concert hall and all that. And when I put these on and listened to, some of the groups that I used to see at the concerts, like one was Depeche Mode. I saw them about 8 times in concert, and it just totally reminded me, gave me that feeling like I was there at that concert hall, that indoor concert. Just, like I said, that low thumping bass that I don't hear from other headphones. I mean, I haven't heard them all, so I'm not saying this headphone has more bass than anything, because I don't know, but compared to the headphones I have reviewed so far, this headphone has by far the most impact and punch to the bass. Another thing it reminded me of is back when I was young, I had a car, and I was one of the early people to put 15-inch subwoofers in the back of a car. And I remember, just that thump from the 15-inch subwoofers. And like, once again, I've never had a headphone that's duplicated that sound. And this headphone comes really close to that. Reminds me of being back in my car with those 15-inch subwoofers in the back. Just that real low, punchy, dynamic bass that most headphones can't duplicate. So anyway, I did some experimenting, ran a lot of different kinds of music through this headphone, and like I said, it seems to really excel at rock and pop and electronic music. So that's I'm going to give you a few examples of some CDs I thought sounded good. Back when I did have that car with the 15-inch subwoofers, one of my favorite CDs was this one. It's called The League Love and Dancing. It's the band Human League. It's sort of an extended dance remix CD, and there's one song in particular, it's called Things That Love Are Made Of, and it just had this really low thump to the bass. And I remember people would be in my car and tell me they could feel their hair moving, or they would tell me that that it was changing their heartbeat, just the impact of the bass. And I put the CD in with Meze 99, and it came really close to duplicating that same sound. I couldn't feel it in my chest the way I did in my car, but I mean, it just, it's the first time that I've heard a headphone that could really come close to duplicating that. So anyway, yeah, this type of music, I mean, we're talking 80s new wave, sort of a dance mix thing, but the headphone did really good with that. Another CD that I tried that I thought sounded really good was Rush Moving Pictures, and the first thing I noticed was how the bass guitar just stood out. I mean, it just had so much impact to it. A lot of headphones just can't get down low enough to duplicate that, or it just sounds kind of distant and kind of weak. But the bass guitar and the bass drums also just had a huge amount of impact and just sounded really good. And I mean, these headphones aren't going to dig out the last detail in the music, especially in the upper mid range, but they just make everything sound fun. So anyway, another CD, 9 Inch Nails, Pretty Hate Machine. Another CD that just sounds really fun because of this headphone's ability to duplicate that deep bass, with a lot of impact, with a lot of punch, and reminded me of being back in dance clubs in Chicago back in the 80s and 90s. Just that low thump, like just kind of being off in the back of the room somewhere, not right up by the speakers, but just kind of back where the sound is bounced off a few concrete walls, and just that low rumbly sound. So once again, something that sounded good. I mentioned that I saw Depeche Mode about 8 times in concert, and actually I think this came out after the last time I saw them, but anyway, Depeche Mode Violator, another CD that has a lot of low bass in it, and The Meze just does a really good job of duplicating this. Something else I tried, Madonna. What's the name of this? Immaculate Collection. It's kind of a best of Madonna, wide variety, and once again, just sounds really good. Just a fun headphone. It just gets into that really deep, rumbly bass, and you know, like I said, if you're not looking for the last detail in the music, and the thing is, you know, I say it doesn't dig out that last detail, but you don't really miss it unless you compare it to a headphone that has more detail. You know, if I listen to this, I'm not really noticing anything missing. If I switch over to, say, the Sundara, I'm going to now hear a little bit more detail up in the mid-range and all that, but I'm going to lose all that bass that was what was, you know, really making the music enjoyable. So, you know, I mean, with this type of music, it's almost, you know, I think losing that little bit of slight amount of detail in the mid-range, and it's not that the detail is not there, it just sets back a little bit further. Instead of those details being right in your face, they're just back a little bit, and you just have to pay a little more attention to notice them. They don't jump out as much. But, you know, like I said, you switch over to something else and you're just going to lose that deep, rumbly bass, and it takes a lot of the fun out of the music. Another one that, you know, I don't really recommend this so much for acoustical music because that's not really its specialty, but one of my favorite bands is Fleetwood Mac. And the album Rumors is always, some of the songs, not all of them, there's a couple songs that have good bass, but a lot of the songs on this just always sounded a little bit thin to me. And the Meze really fills that bass in and makes it sound good. And another thing I found this headphone really good for is I like to sometimes listen to music right before I go to sleep. And if I listen to it at a lower volume, it's more relaxing and I tend to, you know, drift off, and that's kind of my intention. And at lower volumes, most music and most headphones are going to lose their bass impact and their bass extension. It's just how the human ear works. At lower volumes, the bass is going to become less apparent to you and less obvious. And that's what's really cool about this headphone, because if I want to put on something like Fleetwood Mac and listen to it at a real low volume right before I go to sleep, it still has that bass, where a lot of my headphones and a lot of the headphones I've used, in fact most of them, when you turn them down to low volume like that, the bass just pretty much disappears. You lose it completely. So if you want to listen to basically anything at low volumes and still have some bass to it, that's another place where this headphone really stands out. I think in the first video I talked a little bit about the soundstage and imaging. The soundstage it's decent, it's not huge, but it's a closed back headphone, and you know, that's pretty much expected for a closed back headphone. It's not going to be real large. It is, the only other closed back headphone I have right now is this Sony DJ headphone, and this definitely has a bigger soundstage than that. But you know, it's not as big as what you're going to get from an open back headphone, but it's still got a pretty decently wide soundstage, a little bit of height to it, a little bit of depth to it. The imaging is actually pretty good in my opinion. I think the separation between the instruments and being able to pick out their location is actually pretty good. So, you know, I don't really have a problem with either of those. The detail, like I said, the only really weak point, and it's not really a weak point, it's just not a strong point with this headphone, is the upper mid-range. The detail is there, but it's a little bit distant. It sits back a little bit, especially like female vocals, where some headphones will make a female vocal sound like it's right here, you know, 6 inches in front of your face. This headphone sets it back a little bit. And, you know, that's really not a bad thing. I mean, you know, the fact is, too much detail in the upper mid-range and too close can really get fatiguing after a while. So if you want a headphone that you can just put on, well, you know, maybe, I mean, this works good with a portable, so you could use it while you're traveling, or, you know, maybe at your desk working or something. If you want a headphone with a relaxed sound that you can listen to for hours without it getting fatiguing and feel like someone's drilling into your ears, it's another strong point of this headphone. It's really good at that. Like I said, I would say this headphone works, in my opinion, works best with rock, pop, and electronic. I would say, like, acoustical and orchestral music isn't really its strong points if you're trying to hear every last detail in that type of music. But, you know, if you want a more laid-back sound, then it might work well with those too. But basically, every headphone is different. Every headphone's going to fit a different person, a different taste, and it depends what you're looking for. I mean, to be perfectly honest with me, or be perfectly honest with you, my personal preference, to me, it has a little bit too much bass. But I'm not a bass head at all. I mean, I'm one of those people that thinks, like, you know, Hi-Fi Man headphones have a pretty good tone balance. But a lot of people, and talking quite a bit, I mean, I hear it all the time on my headphone group, people complaining about, like, the Sundara being thin in the bass. So if you're one of those people, this is probably going to be just right for you. So, you know, like I said, this might be, or if you think the Grotto is on the thin side, if you're looking for a fun, bassy, punchy, dynamic headphone that's going to be a lot of fun to listen to, you know, like I said, rock, pop, electronic, things like that, I highly suggest checking this headphone out. It might be just right for you. So that's really about all I've got to say on this right now. So I'm going to wrap this up, and wanted to let you know I've got a couple more videos I'm going to try to get out in the next week or two. I need to do a second, more in-depth video on the Wells Milo and the Hi-Fi Man Aria, and I need to do a second video on the Urza Bacillus tilia. That's a hard one to say. And also, I just found out yesterday I've got a Felix Audio Echo tube amp coming in, so I'm going to try to get a video out on that. First impressions maybe next week. I'm not sure when it's going to be here. I think it's still several days out. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, and once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and if this video helped you, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you're all welcome to join us over at the Headphone Experience on Facebook. Thank you.